Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Yes. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 revised order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18. Meetings of Berkshire Hills Regional School District School Committee will be conducted both in person and remote through March 31st, 2025. Agenda items listed are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed. Items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being recorded by CTSB and the school committee recorder and other members of the public. Once transcribed and approved, minutes will be made public and posted to our website. So we have at least one member participating remotely, so we'll take a roll call. Bill Vogt. Present. Ann Hutchinson, I do not see. Jason? Here. Bonnie?
Here.
Sarah?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Diane? I think she's joined. Corey?
Here.
Rich?
Here.
And I am present. There are two members who are not here as of yet. Next, we have minutes from September 21st, 2023, October 5th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved. Seconded.
So I have a motion by Rich, a second by Bill. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. Bill? Yes. Ann, it's not here. Jason?
Aye.
Bonnie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
And we're doing the minutes.
Yes.
That's a yes from Diane. Corey?
Aye.
Rich?
Yes.
And I, it's unanimous. Superintendent's report.
Okay, so I think we're gonna be brief tonight on our roses and thorns. Do you have anything, Katie, you wanna share?
No, just highlight just a couple of things that happened in the past week. We have Berkshire Pulse is doing a special program with our students in the integrated pre-Ks and the in our Aloha program. And it's especially designed for those with different abilities, so it should be interesting for them.
Great, thanks. Miles?
We had a really great assembly last week for Hispanic Heritage Month. That we was featured some dancing and everybody got a churro. It was really fun. And tomorrow we're welcoming Dusty Bowling, who's the author of our One School, One Story book that everybody, adult, student, everybody in the school has read this book and been doing lots of discussions on it. And the author is leading an assembly and some writers' workshops tomorrow for students. So we're very, very excited about that. And our new 8th grade math teacher starts Monday, so we are coming closer and closer to being fully staffed, and very excited about it.
Great. Christy?
Yes, Miles reminded me when he announced about the 8th grade math teacher that our RISE special education teacher, Ellie Meeks, joined us this week. We had hired her late in the summer, and she came out from Oregon to us and is now with us officially, and we're so excited to have her. And then 2 grants we received that we're going to be asking for your approval on later in the agenda. We've received $200,000 in continuation funding for the BAR grant, and I'll be giving you an update on that this evening. And then we also received from the Next Generation Learning Challenges just over $2,600 to support a team that's going to be visiting the Expeditionary Learning School, Casco Bay in Portland, Maine, later this fall.
Great. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is ask or formally ask your approval for both of those grants, and you could do them together or separately, but the $200,000 from the BAR Foundation is a continuation grant, and Christy, the amount on the NTLC again?
It's 2,600, I think, 2,634.
Okay.
Exactly. Sorry.
Motion to approve the BAR grant. Okay.
Do I have a second? Motion by Rich, a second by Bill. Any discussion on the BAR grant? Roll call vote. Bill? Aye. Ann is not here. Jason?
Aye.
Bonnie?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Bill?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Corey?
Aye.
Rich,
Yes.
and I, it's unanimous.
Motion to approve the NGLC grant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Rich, a second by Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Bill.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Bonnie.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
Bill.
Yes.
Diane.
Yes.
Corey.
Aye.
Rich.
Yes.
And I, it's unanimous, both grants.
Great, thank you very much, and thanks to both the Bar Foundation and NGLC for their ongoing support and partnerships. Another thing I just wanted to share, we were awaiting the rural aid allocation, and that came in the other day. And talk about strange numbers, it's $388,568.96. So we'll be coming back at the next meeting with some early recommendations, and then also we'll be meeting with the finance committee around other possible ways to invest that.
How does that compare here with last year?
It's a significant increase, so I think last year was like I don't remember exactly, but like 254. So the state's made a commitment, and that number keeps going up. I think I mentioned that we were getting close to the per capita income cap. And if you go over $58,000 in a community, then you stop being eligible. But we're, I think, $5,000 or so under that threshold. And I can bring all that detail to our next meeting. So that's really good. The other thing I wanted to say, well, you know what, let me do the student awards first. I'll come back to this later. So one of the really neat things I get to do is work with the high school folks in selecting each year 3 students who are seniors for awards. And one of the awards is the MASC, or the Massachusetts Association of School Committee Award for Certificate of Academic Achievement. And we'll be presenting that to Ari Kane, hopefully in a little bit. The other 2 are the 2 of these awards, and it's the National School Development Council, and this is tied to NESDEC, which is a group that was started at Harvard like 75 years ago. And I was actually on their board for a while, and we'll be presenting that award to Noelia Salonetti and Ellis Sockeye, who are here. So what I'd like to do is first talk a little bit about Noelia and then Ella. Okay, so this is a nice meaty paragraph, so bear with me while I read it. Noelia Salonetti is a community leader, a difference maker, and a dedicated and talented student who exhibits all of the values you would hope for in a young person. Noelia has been remarkably consistent in all subject areas. As one of the most highly motivated student leaders in our school, Noelia has been recognized with induction into our National Honor Society and was the recipient of the Harvard Book Award at last year's Junior Awards ceremony. Noelia has consistently pursued education beyond the traditional and found ways to stretch herself intellectually. This intense desire to learn is paralleled by a deeply committed life here as a student leader. Noelia has been a member of our student advisory board each year she has been here, and currently serves as the leader of our diversity, equity, and inclusion subcommittee. Most importantly, Noelia has been a driving force in our school community with regards to improving diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as in the area of wellness and student voice. Noelia was one of a small group of students with the support of a faculty member to plan a 2-day-wide school-wide assembly focused on anti-racism. This included preparing faculty ahead of time, collaborating with community organizations and administration to put on the event. Noelia was the co-moderator for both days of the forum, and the impact and impression it left on everyone was deeply resonant. Noelia is a confident public speaker as well as a strong problem solver and organizer. She is confident in her ability to sit at a table with both peers as well as adults and can stand by her opinion and advocate for the student body in ways that focus on improving the quality of the experience and are congruent with her school's mission. Noelia's contributions to the performing arts are notable as well, where she has been involved with our Shakespeare Fall Festival productions and our spring musical productions, often in the leading role. This past summer, she participated in the Summer Performing Arts program at the Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan as well. She has had a massive impact on our school community. Congratulations, Noelle.
Thank you for your.
Sure. All right, and now on to Ella. Ella is a deeply committed student leader here. Ella has excelled academically. She has taken a very rigorous program and gone well beyond her academic program, taking multiple college courses through dual enrollment. She even earned a certificate through Holyoke Community College for a course she took in Spanish for medical professionals last summer, which aligns well with her goal of pursuing a career in the medical sciences. Her scholarship, outstanding character, and accomplishments as a student leader earned her the distinct honor of being the recipient of the Dartmouth College Book Award at her junior awards ceremony. Ella's dedication to her studies is obviously very important to her, yet it represents only one facet in her life, which is filled with significant accomplishments and honors as well. Ella is a captain and starter in volleyball. She's been a leader in student government, serving as class president and student facilitator for our student advisory board as part of our wellness subcommittee. This year, she is also president of the National Honor Society. When it came time to select a small group of students to participate in the writing and editing of our school code of conduct, Ella was one of only a few selected from her class by our assistant principal. She has also served as a tutor for English language learners in mathematics and is currently a teaching assistant in our AP chemistry class. Outside of Monument, Ella has always had a job throughout high school and somehow has found the time to create and market her own brand of granola, Ella's Granola. And I'm just gonna ad lib, feel free to place orders. In order to fit all of this in, it requires a great deal of organization and discipline, which is where Ella separates herself as a leader. She is first and foremost a person of integrity who can be counted on to take initiative and consistently follow through. Ella is in one sense very modest and unassuming, yet underneath beats the heart of a focused and extremely determined person, deeply dedicated to doing her very best. Congratulations. So the third one is Ari Kane, and Ari's not here, I don't think.
No.
Let me read this.
They're trying to get in, right?
I was just trying to get in?
Yes.
Okay, so let me wait a second.
Yeah.
We did this before with the music guy. I'm not gonna do it and then do it again, so let me wait a
We need
second.
to work on
I'm trying to get
On our signage.
Yes.
Did she know to go?
It was probably the non-kick pumpkin what took all the
Yeah.
parking places.
Yeah.
I parked in the
Yeah.
place and could ask them.
Yeah, and
I
then.
think what I'll do is I'll get some like Velcro things and we'll have laminated signs that we can put up for each meeting.
Because I haven't been Christmas out because we have there's a 6 o'clock volleyball game.
Almost
Yeah.
certainly, yeah. No, thanks for being here, I really appreciate it. I should have said that at the beginning.
Yeah. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
take care.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
Going up to the MSBA, that'll be short.
I think she,
Yeah.
already walked
I
in.
think right here.
That's right.
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Great. Welcome and relax. What I'm doing now is presenting the MASC, or the Massachusetts Association of School, I'm not MASC, MASS, Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Award for Academic Achievement. So Ari Kane is the daughter of Hannah and Rebecca Kane of Richmond. Ari is an outstanding student and active member of Monument School Committee. Ari has been awarded the AP Scholar Award, including the AP WE Service recognition and the AP National Rural and Small Town Recognition Award. In addition, Ari is the recipient of the prestigious University of Rochester Washin-Loma Award and is a member and elected secretary of the National Honor Society. Ari is the stage manager for school theater performances and is a member of the Empire State Youth Wind Orchestra. Ari is passionate about studying animal science and has dedicated time as a veterinary assistant and veterinary technician since 9th grade. Congratulations, Ari. That's great. So again, really fun. We're really impressed by the three of you and all you're doing. And I'll try to get this out to the local media in press releases tomorrow or the next day. Super. We're going to transition to the next part of our meeting. You're welcome to stay, but maybe have a volleyball game or you just want to do something else. And feel free to go do those things. Okay.
Thank you so
Sure.
much.
Congratulations, guys.
So we have today two special guests, Lucy Prashker and Jake Everwine. Why don't you come up to the table? Lucy is the chair of the 8-Town Regional School District Planning Board, and I think is well known to everybody in this room. And Jake is working as a consultant and the project manager for that work. The little bit of context, and they're not going to do the whole half-hour or hour presentation. They're going to do a very truncated one and respond to questions. But we're at the very tail end of 3.5, almost 4 years of work, and it culminates with votes in Egremont on Saturday and the other 7 towns on Monday, and we asked them to come and give a little update and respond to any questions folks have.
Thanks, Peter. I have to say, I'm feeling a little inadequate after hearing about Noelia, Ella, and Ari's incredible accomplishments in high school. And we could have used them on our 24. But anyway, thanks for having us tonight. And as Peter said, we're on the eve of casting a vote on a very big decision. Which is whether to combine the Berkshire Hills Regional School District with the Southern Berkshire Regional School District into a new pre-K through 12 regional district. And there are a lot of details and nuances to the decision, but it sort of boils down in its essence to whether we can do better together that which we are doing currently apart. I mean, that's sort of the bottom line question. And our board thinks the answer to that question is yes. And before I get into the why, we've got thousands of pages as to why we think the answer to that is yes. I just want to talk a bit about how we got here, and it actually began with a letter that your school committee wrote to the Southern Berkshire Regional School District School Committee, asking whether they would be interested in discussing the possibility of a merger. And that letter got copied to the select boards of all 8 towns, and the select boards of all 8 towns said, yeah, we want to think about that. We want to study that. And so we started the study. Our board was then born, a somewhat painful birth, but we were born. And 24 volunteer members on that board, 3 from each of the towns, and we've had tremendous participation from the members of your school committee on that 24-member board. Steve has been on since the beginning. Bill came on and Sarah came on, and before that we had Molly Thomas and Sean Stephen, right? All incredible contributors to this very important work. And the other incredible contributor to this very important work has been your superintendent, Peter Dillon, who has been to almost every meeting we've had, not just our board meetings, but our community outreach meetings and our educational quality meetings. Just a tremendous effort there, and we couldn't have gotten to where we are today without his support and wisdom and insight. So thank you, Peter. So 3.5 years, we've been working on the study. And before we started thinking about possible solutions, we wanted to make sure we understood and identified the challenges. And the challenges you all know about, but I'm just going to summarize them for you. Staggering declines in enrollment over the last several decades. But while our enrollment declines, our operating costs go up. So we're paying more and more to educate fewer and fewer students. Pretty much flat state revenue. So when we have rising operating costs, we have rising tax burden. More and more of that burden falls on the taxpayers of our member towns. And all of that combined puts tremendous pressure on the ability of our school districts to provide the broad range of programs and support that they need, and to enhance those programs as those needs change and increase. So enrollment declines, you've all seen the numbers across the two districts. Since the year 2000, we've had a 37% plus decline in enrollment across the two districts, and the projections are that those declines will continue. So we looked at the challenges, and our finance subcommittee concluded that our current models of operation really aren't sustainable, meaning that either taxpayers are going to have to agree to pay more at higher rates of increase for fewer kids, or there's going to be a lot of pressure on cutting programs and cutting personnel. So we engaged Jake's team, his research team, to present us with other options. And we looked at lots of different models that ran the spectrum from more formal collaboration to full combination of pre-K through 12. And the model that we selected and the model that is before us for vote, for most of us on Monday, for Egremont on Saturday, is creating a new pre-K through 12 regional district that maintains all existing elementary and middle schools as they are, but creates a new single high school in a state-of-the-art facility that will be built on the Great Barrington campus. And the new facility that we hope will be built will have greatly expanded vocational Chapter 74 facilities and programs, up to 6 of those, which would be available to high school students in both districts. You know that you have 3 currently, you just added your 3rd this year, I understand. And Mount Everett has no Chapter 74 programs currently. So this would be a huge opportunity for students in South County who are woefully underserved when it comes to vocational education. Why did we choose the model we did? Lots of reasons, thousands of pages on the website about that, but I think we can put it into 3 buckets. With a single district, we will be able to realize significant economies of scale and efficiencies, and we're projecting operating cost savings in the range of $1.2 to $1.8 million a year. And that's factoring in salary increases for Southern Berkshire teachers who are not at parity currently with Berkshire Hills teachers. So even with that, we're projecting $1.2 to $1.8 million a year in savings. We think this would be great for students. More choices, academic, extracurricular, club, more kids, more people, for the kids to be able to find their people, right? Find their friends and feel that they really belong. More support and guidance, special ed, social emotional support, English language learners, plus the vocational and technical opportunities that I described earlier. So that's bucket number 2, good for students, more opportunities, more choices. And then number 3, with a critical mass and pooled resources, we feel we would be much better positioned to face the challenges that lie ahead. Again, we're pooling our resources, we're pooling our kids, so that we'll be better positioned to provide them with the education that they deserve. So that's sort of the overview. Really happy to take questions. If you'd like me to talk a little bit about the regional agreement and the governance structure, I'd be happy
Maybe
to
a little
do
bit
that.
about that, and a little bit about the finance.
Okay. So the regional agreement, we worked on that for a solid 10 months as a board. It was a very methodical process. We took the substantive provisions one by one. Some were tougher than others. I would say school committee composition took the most time. That was one of the tougher issues. But we worked together across the towns to find agreement, and we succeeded in hammering out a comprehensive agreement that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education representatives have carefully reviewed and have told us they would recommend to the Commissioner of Education if the 8 towns approve the merger. So it's a comprehensive document, it's a solid document, it's been heavily vetted. School committee governance. So as you know, our 8 towns vary widely in population. From the smallest of the 8 towns, Alford, we have 486 residents based on our 2020 census. And of course, Great Barrington is the largest with more than 10 times that amount, 7,150 based on the 2020 census. So that presented a bit of a challenge. And we looked at a variety of approaches to that. We felt strongly, our board felt strongly, that if we were going to join together to form a new region of 8, we really should have a governance structure that reflects a regional view, rather than a structure that's weighted according to relative town size. So where we landed was a school committee of 11, with members elected district-wide, as they are now in both districts, with every town having 1 representative, but Sheffield having 2, and Great Barrington having 3. So that gets us to 11. So Great Barrington has 3, Sheffield has 2, and every other town has 1. So you might ask, well, why 6 for residents in southern Berkshire and 5 for residents in Berkshire Hills when the relative population is just the opposite? It's a good question, but it's sort of as a result of acknowledgement that you can't have a school committee of 20 or 25 or 30, right? And if every town is going to have 1, right, you give every town at least 1 seat at the table. If you agree, as Peter suggested, and Beth suggested, I believe as well, that the optimum school committee size is somewhere around 10, right? 10, 11, something around there. You gotta give a little bit more representation to the smaller towns. And so the belief was that because we're electing everyone district-wide, it satisfies the 1 person, 1 vote imperative, right? And once people get on the school committee, and this has been my experience, I was on the Southern Berkshire School Committee for many years, people make decisions based on what's best for the kids of the district. And they're not really thinking, what's best for my town, what's best for the kids in my town. You're all thinking about what's best for the kids in the district. And so we were pretty confident that the new school committee is going to be thinking and operating that same way. So that's sort of the meat of the governance. You want to talk a little bit about finance?
Sure. So I'm sure that you all have kind of a working understanding of how we tackle the complexities of the emerging two school districts in figuring out who's going to pay what. And we had a very active finance subcommittee, which chewed on this problem for months and months. And so we all know that the way that we finance schools falls into sort of two major buckets. One is the operating costs and the other are capital costs. I know you know that, your school committee members, you vote on these sorts of things on an annual basis. So we had to actually look at those two things very distinctly and separately. And in the capital bucket, we also knew we had sort of three categories of potential capital expenditures. One would be existing debt that would be carried in from the two districts. So we call that the legacy debt. The second would be how this new high school or reconstructed high school is going to get paid for. And the third is future debt, recognizing that 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years in the future, things will need to be done to the school, and how do we apportion that out? So we tackle operating expenses as a budget and then capital in sort of those various domains. So I'll start with operating, and we have an hour-long presentation on our website, which we sort of go through this. It seems overly complicated, but it's not really, because in many ways, it borrows from what you're doing currently, what the two districts are. That's one of the interesting things about the regional agreement generally, is it pulled from the two regional agreements greatly. And so on the operating side, we actually pulled greatly from the Southern Berkshire agreement and how they operate operating expenses by using their 5-year foundation rolling, a minimum required minimal contribution, 5-year rolling to sort of establish the baseline, whereas you all use resident enrollment to do yours. However, on the capital side, you use EQE, which is what you do, and they don't. So we actually borrow from both agreements and sort of reaching sort of a happy compromise and sort of borrowing from both methodologies, if that makes any sense. So I'll just talk a little bit about operating. One of the challenges with the operating was when you bring two budgets together and they're not perfectly aligned, you create, right out of the gate, you have these huge imbalances that just happen, regardless of what methodology you're going to use. And part of that's driven by the methodology, and part of that's driven by spending patterns. And so when we ran operating a lot of different ways. We ran foundation enrollment 1 year, we ran resident enrollment, we ran EQB, we ran it many different ways. And what we found is that there was this, in the first year of the marriage, in effect, there was this dramatic shift of funding, which resulted in large spikes in some towns and then reductions in other towns. And we knew that that wouldn't be palatable to people. So we had to come up with a methodology that would help what we refer to as smooth the pathway to this marriage. And so the operating methodology exists, includes 3 pieces. The first piece is the regulatory methodology, which is just required local contribution. And both districts use that currently. It's required if you want to be in a regulatory methodology. If you don't want to be in a regulatory methodology, you come to an alternative methodology, but then you have to prove it every year at the town level and every year by the commissioner, which is a heavy lift to do on an annual basis. You want to build this into a regional agreement and be done, right? The second bucket is, so that sets the required local spending, but as you all know, every town, basically, every district in many in Massachusetts and everyone in Berkshire County spends more than they're required to. So how do you portion out that amount of money that districts are spending beyond? And that's really what we grappled with. How do we portion that out? We settled on, again, using the 5-year rolling average as a way to smooth sort of this marriage and smooth any changes, shifts in enrollment that might happen on a year-to-year basis, so that towns wouldn't get hit dramatically from one fiscal year to the next. And then the third thing we put in was what we sort of refer to as an insurance policy. It's called the safety valve or cap. And we just said, well, just in case, and we actually saw it in the first year, we see these massive swings in a particular town, how do we control that? We ended up building this safety valve cap, which controls how much an individual town can increase in a single fiscal year above the total assessment increase. And we set that increase at 2%. So I know I've showed the slide before where I have big red bars and they're all over the map and it swings up and swings down, and we apply the safety valve and it brings it to the middle. So the safety valve is really designed to help really smooth the first couple of years of the marriage. And then once you've established, once you get into the 5-year rolling and you've got that established for a couple of years, the safety valve actually disappears. We ran it out for some time, and we think that probably 6 or 7 years out, it'd probably be a non-factor. All right, but it helps to kind of get you out of the gate. So that's operating in a nutshell. We have a lot of slides. We have a town by town on our website. There's a little button that says finance. You can click on it and you go to your specific town. It shows you merger versus non-merger. It shows you some other stuff. So hopefully that's kind of a distilled down version that folks can review before they go to vote a town, especially town meeting. And on the capital side, real quickly, we left legacy debt with where it existed. So you, all your debt will be paid, I believe, this year on your schools. And then Berkshire has debt that will carry through 2032. And so we left the legacy debt with them, and they would continue, those 5 towns would continue to be contributing to that debt until it's expired. But then we had this challenge with how do we pay for the high school. You've all seen the model, the 90-10 model. That was based on the idea of what will it cost for you all to build the school alone? What will it cost to add on about another 130 kids or so to the building? We don't think that's a proportional cost in terms of another 22% on top. We calculate another 10%, and that we arrived on this total number of 100 million, which has been challenged. A lot of folks are saying, is that right? And folks are saying, is the interest rate right? And we've done our modeling based on assumptions and projections, which you have to do when you look into the future. You've got to have variables. But we've also run that with other numbers. We run it with a 6.5%. Our original was 3.25%. And we run it with a $150 million project. Just so folks could be satisfied that, hey, if costs were to go up, this is how it would impact your particular community. And so the advantage to you all here in building a $100 million high school with your neighbors, as you know, is that we get the 6% potential regionalization incentive from the state, which is a lot of money, and it actually drives down your total. And then Southern Berkshire contributes $4 million, which is very modest in terms of the overall price of the project, and that drives down actually your capital liability from about 45 million to about 41.5. So it actually costs you less to build a bigger high school together with them than it would theoretically at 90 million to build it alone. So we think that's fair, and obviously we're doing work with the Southern Berkshire towns who are arguing that they've got a perfectly viable and ready high school, and why should we pay anything in effect? And we're arguing that building this state-of-the-art high school with vocational programs adds such significant value to the south part of Berkshire County in many different ways that we think it's a modest but really important investment. So that's a real quick overview of finance. Some of you sat through long meetings know. So
let's take some questions. Corey, go right ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about how the voting is going to work in each of the towns?
Sure.
And what happens with a for vote or
Very
against
important
vote?
question. But I'm gonna let Lucy jump in.
Yeah.
I can too, but she does it just more eloquently.
So, to have an 8-town agreement, you need all 8 towns to say yes. So in order for the regional agreement that we proposed, which is an 8-town agreement, to come into effect, we need a majority vote in each of the 8 towns. So a question has been asked, well, the town of Egremont is going first. They're voting on Saturday, everybody else is voting on Monday. Does that mean if there's a no vote in the town of Egremont, everybody else should stay home? And our answer to that is absolutely not. That we have to see where the voters in the other 7 towns stand in order to be able to determine what our next step should be. So if all the other towns vote yes, we have options. The first option would be to go back to the town of Egremont and say, your friends and neighbors think this is the right thing to do. These are the reasons. We'd like you to reconsider and have a more targeted education campaign in that town to see if we could bring that town around. If there's a particular concern about the regional agreement that would bring the town around, we could think about tweaking the agreement to address that concern. So that's option number 2. And then option number 3 is, should we be thinking about the possibility of a 7-town region? Is that possible? Is that doable? Does that make sense? And it all depends on what the vote is. You know, which is the one town, if there is one, that says no, and how wide a margin was that no? And so there are lots of variables there.
Will the votes be by ballot or? Yeah, by ballot.
Yeah, so it's sort of a quirky thing. The statute requires this vote to happen at a town meeting. Which is unfortunate, because if it were a ballot question where people could vote all day long, we'd have greater turnout, right? We all know that, but we can't do that. The statute is very clear that it has to be a town meeting, but it has to be by written ballot. So people will have privacy when they vote.
So that, it has to be that way, I can't do a voice vote? Like-
No,
Oh,
no, it's gotta be a written ballot. So there will be written ballots in each of the towns at town meeting.
Other questions?
Lucy, I'm Bill Fields. This is my, I don't know what, 3rd term. I was elected overwhelmingly by 1 vote. Last, and I didn't think. And I didn't think I'd be here. And the main reason I'm here and I fulfill the obligations that my 5 voters expect of me.
There's a mandate.
Is I'm on the building committee, and it has been my wish since I started with this committee. And I've taught at Monument for many, many years as a social studies teacher, is the building project. And so I'm very concerned. My question is, if this is successful, what happens to our present Berkshire Hills Regional School District Building Committee, which has now entered the feasibility and design phase? We have hired an OPM, and we're on the tracks. The train has left the station. I'm very concerned about this interim transitional committee. And I've read all the pros and cons, and I've had a long conversation with a member of the school committee from the South. And this transitional committee seems to be one of the boogeymen that are being waved at us about what will happen to our building committee. Will it be reformed? Will we continue on the path that we're doing, just whatever? Could it be disbanded and started again? Will we have, obviously, with the merger, we'd have new members. And so I'm very worried about this project in regards to the merger.
Yeah,
So can you address that?
great question. And we were very concerned that we not do anything to derail your project. And that was a primary concern and focus of ours, and it's why we built into the regional agreement what's called a debt approval contingency, which says if the 8 towns don't vote to approve the debt for an 8-town high school, when that comes to a vote in 2024, whenever it does, then the new district goes away. And the existing districts continue on. So the thing that you really have to keep forefront in your mind is when the new district is formed, that doesn't mean the old districts go away. The existing districts continue in existence and in control of what they're doing during the transition period. There is a third district that gets formed, the new district, but it has sort of a very limited mandate during the first year, and that is to participate in the design of a new an 8-town high school. That doesn't mean your work on a 3-town high school stops, right? So your building committee, your school committee stays in existence. The building subcommittee of your school committee stays in existence. You continue that work, but there will be side by side with you, a new school committee. And the word boogeyman is a good word because it's a school committee, no different from your school committee or the Southern Berkshire School Committee. It's not a boogeyman, it's a new school committee. It's got the same composition, the 11 people, 6 from Southern Berkshire town residents, all representing, the new district, and 5 from Berkshire Hills towns. And they're gonna be working in cooperation with the existing school committees. So we'll have to figure out exactly how the meetings are gonna work, but technically, legally, what's gonna be happening is your building committee will be there, representing your school committee, and there'll be a building committee of the transition committee who will also be meeting, and hopefully we'll be meeting in the same room, right, and talking about the same things, but your building committee doesn't go away, right? Your building committee is thinking about a 3-town high school, and the building committee of the new district is thinking about an 8-town high school. And those projects are going on at the same time and in tandem. So we worked really hard to make sure we weren't getting in the way of your train, because you're right, it's on the tracks, it's moving, you're going to your destination with or without us, and we agree. And that's why we built the debt approval contingency into the agreement and a transition committee that is just going to be working on the design of the new high school up until the point that debt approval vote happens. If the vote is yes, then we continue to work together at that point on an 8-town high school. If the vote is no, new district goes away, existing districts continue on.
When do you see the debt approval vote taking place?
That's a Peter question.
That's a
Yeah,
beautiful.
so the debt approval vote can't happen until the completion of the feasibility and design and the costing out. So this is like, so 2 years maybe, but this is the chicken and egg dilemma.
Well, right, and this,
That you essentially, if the votes at the end of the night, Monday, are positive and we're going forward, then essentially we have to commit to 2 simultaneous designs. And then if the debt vote is positive, we go with the 8-town design. And if the debt vote is negative, then in a very short window, we go with the 3-town design. But the wrinkle that would be very complicated is to get architects and designers to do both of those simultaneously.
So
That's a
for the
huge-
thought, just to be
that's a
clear.
huge wrinkle.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Just to be clear though, what we're saying is if the 3 towns of the Berkshire Hills vote for the debt, and one of the towns in Southern Berkshire vote no, it goes on for the 3 towns, and that's an approval of the debt. So we're gonna do the bill. It's not another vote after that.
Well, it's.
Assuming there's been a feasibility study for
Well,
a
right,
3-town
so the
school.
tension is to say we use the numbers that they've been modeling, 8-town high school is $1 million, it's $100 million, and a 3-town high school is $90 million. Through the feasibility and design, we have to have both of those entirely wrapped up. So, and then a vote structured potentially in a way where the 3 towns are voting for an 8-town and a 3-town high school simultaneously, or everybody votes first for an 8-10, and then very shortly thereafter, the 3-10s vote again for a 3-10.
It's
So
not,
that vote will be a popular vote of all the.
majority.
So
Majority
so-
There's a choice, right?
There are two ways to do it. So you could do it town by town or a aggregate vote. The way it's written into the new regional agreement, it's, and it always makes it, remind me, is it N or D? N is written into the new agreement, N is the popular vote.
Right.
But a school committee with that as the default could vote to go to the other method if they wanted.
By 2/3 vote,
Right.
not majority, 2/3 vote. Would be required to change the default from majority to any town can vote no.
But
So the default right now is the majority.
Yes,
Right. And majority is advantageous.
Yeah.
And Corey, you're right, we've done a lot of thinking on this, and we want it, it's very important to Berkshire Hills that nothing derails the building project. As much as we asked for this merger, and some of us really want this merger, the building project needs to move ahead.
But we have no more guidance from the state that they're gonna be willing to let us do a 2-track feasibility
Yeah.
study for the next 2 years.
They've written into the agreement that we can study both possibilities.
Peter and I have attended meetings, Zoom meetings, where they understood it, and they said they have permission to do this.
Right.
But it's a uncharted territory, I get it, but this isn't a surprise to them. They've
It
gone
was a
ahead and.
surprise to the project managers though, when it was discussed at the last meeting.
But they, it was written into it, and it was written into our request for services for them, so.
It should not have been a surprise.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'll say it, you know.
Yeah, Steve Solz, if you.
Yeah.
Want to recognize him?
Of course.
Kind of on the same topic, it seems, I agree that the MSBA clearly understands that we have these 2 tracks that we're simultaneously entertaining, but I'm not under the impression, and I've been pretty involved in this all the way, that they are aware of or willing to entertain 2 separate committees. As a matter of fact, when we started with the MSBA, we needed to submit our committee for their approval, which included basically names, addresses, what their work history, what their involvement in the school district is. So there is a process for that committee to be accepted by the MSBA. So is the MSBA aware that we may be coming down the road with, oh, by the way, we want another committee to be involved?
It was inherently implied, and the MSBA knew by accepting us that this was just uncharted territory, and that they've been willing to work with us this whole way. So we can't get too far in the weeds with it until this vote on the 23rd. It's just too much of a.
And I've reached out to them a bunch of times, and they're pretty firm about not speculating around possibilities until they know what those are. But it is something I share your concerns.
And one of the things we all realize, that it's a miracle we got back to this. We all take this very seriously,
Yeah.
and we're not willing to lose our place in line, because of the pandemic and the prices, that just accentuates the fact that if we lose our place in line, we not only go to the back, we go farther back. And so this is our chance. This district and the students and the faculty deserve this. And so this has all been part of our discussions, and we're all aware of this. Is the timing perfect for this? No, not at all. But most of us we could have said, not that we would have. Hold off a couple of years before you accept us, and we see if we're merging or not. None of us want to do that. No, we want to have one vote on the school committee to do that. So it's the hands that are dealt us, and we're not going to jeopardize this building project.
And just one other thing, well, this is the first opportunity for 2 regional districts to merge. They have worked in other contexts where towns who've joined existing regional districts. And then they have several projects where they study multiple grade configurations simultaneously, like what they just was announced at North Adams, where they're gonna have 2 elementary schools or 1 bigger school combined. So there is some history of the MSBA of looking at multiple possibilities simultaneously. This is just on a different scale than most of those. Other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a Serve on the Edge, which is, obviously, there's tons of stuff going around in the social media and stuff. We own Berkshire Hills owns our 3 buildings in that campus. But before that, the towns owned their schools. Who owns the schools in Southern Berkshire?
Yeah, great question. So the district owns the Sheffield campus. So not the town of Sheffield, the district owns the Sheffield campus. The school in Egremont is owned by the town of Egremont, and the school in New Marlborough is owned by the town of New Marlborough. So what happens when we join is all the assets and all the liabilities go into a new district. So the new district would own what Berkshire Hills currently owns, and the new district would own what Southern Berkshire currently owns. And also would have all the liabilities of the 2
So
districts.
the town, those 2 towns would still own.
They
their
would
schools.
still own those 2 buildings.
And
yes.
lease them to the new district, presumably.
Excuse me?
And lease them to the new district.
Yes,
continue.
yes. And the regional agreement at DESI's insistence provides that there will be leases for some unknown reason. There are no leases that anyone can locate currently for the schools in Egremont and the school in New Marlborough. And they looked for them and couldn't find them. And now they're saying, why would we ever want a lease? And, you know, there's all this crazy stuff being said on social media. But, you know, DESI thinks, and most responsible people would think, that if you're educating kids in a building that you don't own, that you should have a lease with the owner of that building that allows you to educate the kids in that building. So, yes, if this new district is formed, there will be leases between the new district and those towns.
And everyone is just the small one-room schools.
Yeah, and it's just pre-K.
Other questions?
I guess I'll ask this because I wrote it down, so. If this merger fails, is there a backup plan in regards to towns that would vote positive for it to create and join a district still? Let's say 2 towns,
You're gonna get in the weeds here.
well,
But she kind of already answered that, though.
She did.
Yeah.
so there,
Yes.
The plan is, first of all the energy, especially Lucy and
Right.
Jake
Yeah.
and Peter and Beth have put into this. The backup plan hasn't been front and center, because there's no time for a backup plan to get this done.
Our entire focus has been on an 8-town district.
But if a small town were to vote no, and the other 7 overwhelmingly voted yes,
okay.
there could be some discussion about a 7-town district, where the other one would have to tuition in, because every town has to have somewhere to send their kids. So, well, that, it hasn't been much of our time spent after 3.5 years. And
No, and we don't want to put the focus on that, because we want everyone to come under the tent. So, if we're in that position, and it's if Great Barrington says no, we're done, right? And if Sheffield says no by an overwhelming margin, it's not gonna make any sense. But if my town, Alford, said no, not only would I move out of the town.
We're trying to get people to vote yes, Lucy.
But I mean, should, 50 people in one town decide the fate of all the voters in the other town? I don't think so. So there might be an option, but we haven't really teased out all of those
Yeah,
possibilities.
I understand that, I've gotten that question
Yes.
And I would say the obvious thing that we haven't talked about tonight is this 24-member committee. Again, by statute, it's 3 from every town. So the committee is weighted towards Southern Berkshire in numbers only. But all the votes have been overwhelming, not unanimous, with Southern Berkshire joining Berkshire Hills to vote for all that we voted on. So it's proven that this can be done. And the students were thought of, the faculty were thought of, and not where I live. It's what's better for the kids. So it's worked, and it can work if we can get this to pass on Saturday and Monday. Other questions? Okay.
I want to say you did an amazing job getting us to this point.
I agree.
I make a motion that the Berkshire Hills Regional School District Committee, not the district, endorse the recommendation of the A-Town Committee and ask our 3-member towns to vote favorably on the new regional district warrant article at the upcoming town meeting.
Second. So I have a motion by Rich, a second by Bill Vogt. Do I have discussion?
Why do we have to do this?
First of all, my motion is that it's the committee doing it, not the district. The district has no role in it. I think, as Lucy pointed out, we got the ball rolling, so I think it's kind of to go full circle. I think we have a responsibility in our limited roles in the committee to do what we do to hire superintendents, to approve budgets. But we all individually and as a group kind of take responsibility for the education of our kids. And I think our opinion is important. I think our bully pulpit on this is important. I think it's, I think if we remain silent on it, we would be on the wrong side of history. I think this is the right thing to do. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but I think it's necessary, and I think it would be, I don't think we'd be living up to our obligation to our kids if we just remain silent on
If this, I agree with everything Rich said, and the school committee can't get 6 votes. We don't need a unanimous. That's not how democracy works. If we can't get 6 votes, it does send a message to all 8 towns. That's just how I look at it. I'm not looking for unanimous vote. If it's unanimous, terrific, but that's, sometimes unanimous isn't, everything isn't perfect.
And I think, I look at the mission, as Peter always states at every budget town meeting. He can revert, he's got it memorized, but I have to read it. And I think in carrying out our mission as a school committee in charge of this district, this is the best educational opportunity for our district. I had discussions with people about we can go it alone. Yes, we could, maybe with some of the numbers that we're looking at. I still feel that this is the way to go in regards to expanding educational opportunity. And that's what we're here for, to give our students the best chance at opportunities that may not exist in the form that they exist now. And I look at both academically and, you know, for example, I had a long discussion with a school committee member from South County about the Simon's Rock program. I said, that does not go away. Simon's Rock will probably want more kids. This would make that available to everybody in the district. It would expand the educational opportunities. And we're not, as I said to her, we're not talking about a large district. We're, I think, what, 620 would be a district? And as some letter to the editor wrote, the person said, this is not a huge rural school district. 620 is still small. So in my eyes, educationally, I think this is the best, and I'm here to represent the educational aspects of the district and the mission. And I think approving this forwards our mission.
The other thing to realize, and it doesn't need to be said to this committee, we can disagree and still work together. We always have.
Yep.
And that's what we're asking for the voters to do too. 2 neighbors could vote the opposite and they say, why do we move ahead, whether it passes or not? We've always done this as a committee, that we don't have to agree on everything. It's not important. What's important is we listen to each other, we have respect for what we think, and we move ahead. And that's what we've always done. So that's what it's really about. And we're gonna, hopefully the towns will mirror this too. Anyone else? Roll call vote. Bill Vogt. Aye. Ann,
Yes.
Jason,
Aye.
Bonnie,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Corey,
I'm abstaining.
Rich,
Yes.
and Steve, yes, so it passes with nine votes. And it is amazing the work that's been done by the committee, by Lucy, by Jake, and however the vote goes, it's not a reflection on them. They put all the effort into it. They've done a tremendous job with a lot of adversity, and maybe more than they realized when they were getting into this. But it's fantastic.
If nothing else, it's been a model on how a deliberative process is supposed to work and how evidence-based practices are supposed to be used to justify decisions.
Thank you.
I think our committee has learned from what you guys have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your support.
So I just want to share one other thing. It's in your packet, but it's not on the agenda, but I'm sharing it from the updates from before. Every year, and then we'll transition to the principals sharing their reports. And I'm sorry, this is a longish meeting tonight. Every October 1st, we take a snapshot of where we are with our enrollment. And then sometime after October 1st, we share it. When the October meeting is in really the third week of October, those numbers are completely finalized. And I'm sharing an early draft report, and some people are saying, like, it happened October 1st, it's 18 days ago, why don't you have the final numbers? There's something like 30 towns that our students come from, maybe 29 towns. And folks in this office have to reach out to the town clerks in each of those 30 towns and get them to verify every single student that's here, right? And that's a cumbersome process because in some towns, they have a full-time town clerk who works 5 days a week. And in some towns, they have a very part-time town clerk who works 1 day a week. So what's in front of you, I think, is like 90 to 95% accurate. A couple highlights, and you don't have, and you really need to like look at it with a ruler and reading glasses on, because it'll make you crazy. A couple highlights in comparison to last year. So I just want to make sure now that I'm reading from the right sheet. For in-town students, the total number this year versus last year, so students from Great Barrington, Stockbridge, and West Stockbridge is up by 21. And then, so from 866 last year to 887 this year, right? So that's a nice increase with the students in our 3 towns. And then the total enrollment is 13 students, and this is including the pre-K students. So last year we had 1,205 students, and this year we have 1,218 students. And then the other thing that some people were asking me about is how many choice students we have coming in. So our total number of choice students is down by 6 from 268 to 262. And our choice students from the 5 towns, and they're like sub-hamlets, is down a little bit from 129 students to 126 students. And I double-checked those numbers, or really quadruple-checked those numbers. I did it twice with a ruler and a calculator, and then Doreen did it again with a ruler and a calculator. So I have a high confidence in that. But there's the possibility a couple of them change in relation to what the town clerks find.
So, and what we'll get eventually, when the numbers are settled, are choice out students.
Right.
Those numbers take longer to come.
Right, so the same way we're checking on our choice in students, that process happens again, and then we get lists from all the receiving communities who are getting our choice students, and that's shared in January. Okay, so this is just a snapshot. The quick high-level summary is the state of our enrollment is good, it's going up a little. The enrollment or the students in our 3 towns has gone up 21 students, which is nice. And our choice numbers appear to be quite stable, but overall, and only going down 3.
And Stockbridge and West Stockbridge, despite maintaining the same amount of students, have won the assessment lottery for this fiscal year.
Yeah, well, I mean, what seems to happen every year is Great Barrington's percentage goes up slightly, and Stockbridge and West Stockbridge's goes down slightly.
Because the Spragues have all graduated.
Oh, that is part of it.
Great Barrington has done a very good job building more housing, and it shows on here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're doing it.
right, and that's a whole nother report, like, I was very excited, I talked to the folks that manage Windrush Commons today, and I got special permission for our school bus to turn around in our large parking lot, which you just need to do, and it's also good for insurance to have it covered, but that means our bus doesn't have to, park on the side of Route 7 down past Guido's, which isn't a great,
No, that's not right.
which isn't a great spot, but I think we'll be able to additionally run a report that says how many students are directly coming from each of the new housing.
So you're telling me that 22 kids in Megamart come to our school district?
Yes.
How many school age kids do they have?
The other report, we could check, it was about half of the students from Megamart coming to us. Right,
Monterey sends 37 kids?
yes.
It's not geographic.
It is geographic.
It is
right?
geographic, there's no doubt about that.
So I wanted to share that because I thought that was important. What I'd like to do now, if it's okay, is do sort of part 2 or the second act of our previous meeting. At our previous meeting, we did a sort of deep dive into both the accountability information and the MCAS testing. And tonight, our promised response to that is sort of the so what answer. We have these test scores, we have this rating, where are we going forward with our work? And some of that work happened over the summer, some of the work is happening now, and will continue to happen through the year and into next summer. So each of the 3 principles put together a handful of slides, like 4, maybe you exclude the title, 4, to talk about that, and I'll project those slides. And then Christy has a few more slides because she combined 2 things at once. It didn't make sense for her to do a separate presentation just on this, but she's also giving an upgrade on the 9th and 10th grade work, which is interwoven with the so what response, the testing data. So we'll go through each of those. The folks who are presenting, come up and join us here. And I'll click the slides because that works better for our home viewing audience. So we'll do what we always do, which is put the real pressure on Katie and work our way up. So let me just pull up the slides. These will all, we were fine tuning them at the last minute. These will all get put in the packet tomorrow or Monday, so you can look at them, but they'll be projected on the screen as soon as I share them. You don't want to read my email? We'll take care of your business.
Okay, so, basically, you can, in a nutshell, we're doing research-based knowledge and materials developing a common language in main instructional areas, which tend to be the only things that MCAS tests, which is math and ELA. So we're basically staying the course in illustrative math. This is our second year with the program. And one of the things we did is make sure that everybody was on the same page in trainings in the past year. So we're in our second year of rolling that out. And also TDG, the habits of mind and interaction in math. It's year 2 for most. In the 4th grade, at the beginning of the endeavor, which is more of the problem solving portion of math, most of our 4th graders were really heavily into it. But last year we made sure everybody was on the same page. So we're charting the course a little bit by taking on science of reading and using that as a base. If anyone's interested, this is a guide to science of reading that I brought if you're interested, but basically, again, to get us all on the same page. Foundations is a program that fits right into the science of reading philosophy. We've added on Heggerty, which is a phonemic awareness tool that can be used in
What awareness?
It's called phonemic awareness, but it's really early reading skills that can be taught very quickly in 10 minutes a day. And it's cheap. So it was a low lying fruit for us.
Just to give a little context, so there's been a tension in teaching reading, particularly in elementary schools, and it's written a lot about, and on one end of a continuum is phonemic awareness, and on the other end is whole language. And the pendulum is shifting more to the phonemic awareness and the scientific side and away from the whole language thing. For many people, that was an attractive path for many years, but it doesn't work well for everybody.
It really, the first 10 pages of this is the overview of science of reading. The back is really teacher-based, but the front is helpful.
Is it really called foundations, like?
Foundations.
Yeah. It's not a typo.
Oh.
Not foundations, it's
Yeah, I think
foundations.
it's funding, we're teaching kids how to get funding for it.
No, it's fun,
Yeah, it's like
play on
TM.
foundations.
Yeah.
And one thing that we've really been working on in the past, we're in our 3rd year now, is maximizing our interventionists. And one of the steps we took this year was the actual scheduling and equitable scheduling of kiddos. So each grade level has 2 math and 2 ELA half-hour blocks where 8 to 10 students get remedial services from learning specialists. But one of the things that we're adding on is because we have some real lows and some real highs, but we want both the lows to go up and to get more highs. So we're really being very deliberate about differentiating and individualizing in the classroom with the students who are not receiving the remedial, so that everybody's getting something they need at that point, whether it's enrichment or some repetition. And the how for us, which I think would be clear in the other 2 buildings as well, is that our high impact teacher teams, this is what they do. Weekly, they get together at different stages, look at the data, identify the kids, co-plan what's happening for everybody and also what's happening in the individualized times. And most importantly, which we never hardly get to, is determining the impact. So that's one thing that we're really making sure we're doing this year, is going back to that and saying, how did it work? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? What are we gonna do next? And I just had to throw in the note about social emotional learning. We just have to do it. The calmer the students are, the more settled they are and ready to learn. So
Great.
we're just staying the course more than anything. There's nothing new or different there that we haven't been setting in motion for the years I've been here.
Any questions for Katie?
I guess the overall question would be for everyone, but just how is Colin, like, what's Colin's role in this part of the process, if any?
I mean, I can
Yeah,
speak to it
yeah.
in each, it's a little different in each building.
Right.
Colin's been really helpful around helping us organize this work. And then he's spending a lot of time in working with teachers and principals and staff around a really thorough data cycle. So in anything, you're a scientist, you're working in a school, you have a hypothesis, you gather some information, you do some things, some interventions to change something, and then you track how that's working, and then your hypothesis evolves and you do it again, right? So Colin's really leading a lot of work there in supporting that, and then there are different roles. So everybody in the building is a teacher, but there's some instructional lead roles and some social emotional learning lead roles, and they dig in on that more than everybody else and also help to organize it. So that's where I see Colin's impact.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about anything else specific to your building that he's doing?
He's really helping Cynthia and I with the proficiencies because we don't have a huge background in it. We've learned a lot in the 2 years that we've been, but he did some work at this past PD day with my staff around writing and unit planning. So that's been helpful to us as well.
Okay, and maybe Miles and Christie
Yeah.
answer that question in the context of what they're sharing. Okay, let me try to move to the next slide.
You can pass these around if you want.
That's great, thank you. So Miles wins the prize for the cover picture. I don't even know how you made that. I really like it.
Steel brazenly. I'm a subscriber to a service called Slides Go. Sole purpose in existing is to help put together presentations that improve visual impact for an audience. And this is the theme that I've chosen for faculty meetings. And the reason that it's up here now, coming to a school committee meeting, is that the document that I'm going to be showing you is actually a document that I showed my faculty right at the very beginning of the year in terms of how we were setting direction for the school year. So it lists out, I kind of started with the school mission, then it lists out 3 priority areas, the drivers or the action steps that we're going to take to show improvement in those priority areas, and then the metrics or measurements that we're going to be able to hopefully see progress in those priority areas as we move through the school year. Like Katie, we're also continuing to invest in the curriculum that we believe in, the illustrative math, coached through the Teachers Development Group and our R.S.D reading strategy, as well as the ruler curriculum out of Yale for our social emotional learning. But yeah, that's good. Not running my own stuff.
Tell me
Very
what
sharp. So this is our school's mission statement. It's been our mission statement since before I've been a part of the school. It's relatively good mission statement because we do believe in personal academic excellence, student responsibility, the exercise of respect and responsibility, a spirit of inquiry, and an enthusiasm for learning. And after I looked at the available data this summer and took what I knew about the way the school is, I set the 3 priority areas to be around student achievement, staff culture, and student culture. I do want to say that I set this 90 to 95% at or above grade level goal prior to the release of the MCAS scores, and now I kind of want to go back and fine tune it in terms of a level of growth that's adjusted for what we saw in those most recent MCAS scores. But the theme here is that I want students achieving at a high level. So if we jump to this slide, this is where I'm gonna spend most of my time. So to move students academically, there are three major levels that we wanted to pull, and this is what we worked over the summer on in the admin retreat. We invested a great deal of time in the Research for Better Teaching group to help us develop some of these skills. And if you click the button there we go. So in first lever is data meetings, and that every week, all teachers will be having one data meeting per week. And once per quarter, they'll have the chance to show data from their own class in that meeting and have it critiqued, coached, and gone through with their peers to adjust the instruction as they go back to their classroom. At this one, I'm actually feeling fairly confident in that it's started, at least in some places in our school. I had to miss my first data meeting for one of my 7th and 8th grade teams because I had to attend to a disciplinary matter today. And checking with the participants afterwards, and they said, "Oh, it was our most productive session ever." Really, not great for my ego, but made me feel very confident in the training that our facilitators received over the summer, and the fact that the teacher team values this practice already enough that they're faithful to it, even when the boss is away doing something else. I was really pleased that that happened. In terms of developing assessments, every course provides students with an opportunity to demonstrate mastery of our performance indicators through aligned assessment. Our first big push at that work came in our PD session yesterday. Colin helped me design the PD session yesterday along with Dan Ebert from the Great Schools Partnership that took, we took an exemplar assessment from Rhode Island and some design guide templates from the Great Schools Partnership, and we kind of shamelessly ripped their assessment to shreds, right? And went through it and looked at it versus, this is how quality assessment is designed. And then, of course, we turned the tables on ourselves because every teacher in that meeting had brought one of their assessments that they were going to be giving between now and December, and said, well, folks, we just tore apart somebody else's assessment. It's time to look at our work. And so everybody had a chance yesterday afternoon to look at their work, look at our performance indicators, look at the design guide, and come out of there with a stronger assessment. The feedback from teachers has generally been positive about that experience because they appreciated the collaborative kind of collective time to be together and work on this goal. And what we're looking for is to do more cycles of this because we really need to be aligning those assessments and making them, encourage higher achievement. I think the rigor, that's the word, more rigorous. And then student-led conferences, I'll say this is the lever in terms of student achievement that we haven't pulled yet, largely because January is far away and I've been trying to pull those other two levers first. But we're coming up on a student-led conference in January, and this one in January, we're fairly confident that we know what to do because it'll be our third rodeo. The next round in June, we're really kind of in a place where we can still make a lot of decisions as to what that model is going to look like. The piece that I'm really excited about with the January conference is in terms of the data story of Du Bois, right? We know MCAS data tells a story. We know Star 360 data tells a story. We know our assessments tell the story. I'm really excited to figure out what sort of data can we reliably be generating from student-led conferences so they become part of our data story and a reliable part of the picture, not just an anecdote, because anecdotes aren't data. I'm going to spend less time on these two levers because I think they relate less directly to MCAS scores, but I still think they're important. In terms of the adult culture, Ellie and I are working very hard to increase the amount of observation and feedback that we're giving to teachers. I am, how do I say this? I am more on track than I feared I would be. I am not as on track as I hoped I would be in terms of being in classrooms with the frequency that I want. And I'm hopeful to get faster soon. The restorative practices are actually taking off this year. We have made a number of changes that have made it a more systematic approach in terms of the way circles happen and response to specific incidents that I think our staff and students are noticing and appreciating. And the professional development cycle, our first cycle of work with a studio cycle through our teacher development group, we actually had to put off until December, but it is still coming. I'm so confident that that's going to be moving forward. And then in terms of student culture, I'm really happy. This exploratory career challenge program, I could spend a long time telling you about it. Suffice to say, our exploratory team is doing some really explicit work on growing culture through challenging students to do silly things. And it's been really good because the students have been reflecting on what makes them effective in working in a team and how to do better as they come around the challenge. So they're, you can reflect on your experience of anything and show improvement, and that's our goal here, and the students are enjoying it, so that's not terrible. Crew is continuing to move along, and this is a real strength of Ellie Rizzo, is clear communication of expectations and routines and coaching other people into clear statement of expectation and routines. So this is like I said, I was a little bit lazy. This is the document that I started the year with to frame for the teachers, and I cut it up into slides. And periodically, I think I've reviewed it with my staff twice now since the beginning of the year, just so that we can come back to this and say, these are our priorities, these are the levers I said we would pull, and this is where we are. I think we've made the most progress on priority 1 in terms of academic achievement right now.
Questions?
I guess, is it safe to say that based on the MCAS data that came up, for you, it didn't show that you needed to make any real instructional shifts from what you were hoping to do for the year, but it was more around maybe changing targets and fine tuning goals and things like that?
Yes, I want to stick with the way I framed it 2 weeks ago, that I think instructionally our teachers are very strong. And the way I've framed these interventions in terms of data meetings and assessment alignment is we simply haven't been well aligned to the assessments that are telling the story of our success. And that's my real hope for this year.
Thank you. Okay, so now, sorry, I'm changing to another format. We'll transition to.
Better be a good graphic we're about to see here.
It's really good thing, I can't take any credit for the graphics because Mary Nash helped us out with this.
You like it though, it's high quality. There's no title page, but it is high quality.
It's very high quality.
Yeah, I'm impressed there.
Hang on just a.
Well, yeah, because I'm presenting on more than just next steps. I'm presenting on some data around the work we've been doing with 9th and 10th grade, particularly in the bar grant. But I will actually say, I'm going to wind up echoing a lot, particularly of what Miles shared in terms of levers we're pulling. We're very aligned. And when you ask the question about what Colin has been helping us with, I do think our summer admin retreat this year together was incredibly effective. I think it's one of the best admin retreats I've been a part of since I stepped into an administrative role, including the ones that I was actually organizing. But I do think, like, we spent a significant amount of time talking about aligning our practices across the district, and I think it's critically important to ultimately more successful outcomes for students is the work that we're doing across the buildings, not just within each building. So I just want to name that, because as I was listening to you, I was like, yes. So just a reminder, the vision for the shifts that we had made 2 years ago at the high school, really the main focus around the idea of equity and how we are providing opportunities for all students to have access and opportunity to be challenged. And then ultimately, especially at the high school level, pursue the pathways that get them to the post-secondary outcomes they want. And I think some of that was lost in some of the initial messaging, like there's been misinformation that, you know, Monument doesn't have AP classes anymore, or Monument doesn't have this anymore, and we do have those things. The idea was in 9th and 10th grade to provide a foundational experience for all students who want to pursue, you know, an AP course to be able to do so. But if the students who want to pursue automotive technology, you know, that's the direction they're going in, we want to provide them an equally rigorous experience in that pathway, right? So I think that we've been working hard towards that goal and a lot of the shifts that we've been making. We are continuing our work, as Miles already alluded to, around our proficiency-based learning. And I think we've made actually some pretty substantial progress in that area, which I'll talk about a little more further into the slides.
What happens when faculty has a different view about student progress than the student? I mean, you're saying students can communicate their level of proficiency. Does the faculty agree with those
So one of the main purposes of shifting to a proficiency-based learning model is clear communication around what is expected as an outcome for the student. So we talk all the time about what we want students to know in terms of content and what we want them to be able to do in terms of skills. And in a more traditional grading system, oftentimes students are given assessments and the grades are -5, -2, there might be some notes from the teacher, but ultimately what the student's paying attention to is whatever the grade is at the top of the page. Did I get a 91? Did I get a 78? Did I fail? How do I get more points? What do I do to get more points? What do I do to get more points? And the purpose of proficiency-based learning in terms of structure is the feedback ultimately we want to be giving students is aligned to rubrics where it lays out clearly what the skill is that the student's working on, and then they're given feedback that tells them whether they're beginning, developing, meeting, or exceeding in their ability to perform that skill or use the content. And so done well, the student and teacher should be in dialogue about this all the time, right? And I think in our elementary school that started student-led conferences years ago, they were on that track, right? Students can't do a student-led conference if they don't actually really understand what they're being asked to know and do, and then be able to talk about that with their parents. And so the high school, I think, is moving in that direction as well. Our grading system is going to take longer to shift because high school is a little more high stakes in terms of transcripts, right? We don't want to shift reporting out in a way that would cause any harm to any students who have lofty goals of where they want to go after high school. So one of the things that will come up in some of these slides is frustration that both teachers and students and parents feel around the fact that we're still reporting out grades, but in the classroom, there's some of this reporting out with rubrics. And it is a transition that is just going to take a little time to make. The middle school, they're actually a little further along in piloting some of the fully reporting out with the words, beginning, developing, meaning, and exceeding. So, good question. Thank you.
I think that decision will take a lot of community-based dialogue if we ever get there. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to just share with you some of the data we've been collecting. We've been collecting mountains of data, and most of it, when I look at it, raises more questions than it provides answers. And I actually later on in the presentation have questions that I'm asking, and I'm sure you'll ask some of your own. And I think it's important for us to ask questions. So this is just tracking ninth graders, both last year and this year, who reported how challenging and meaningful they felt that their work in their 4 core subject areas were. And this was just ninth grade, because ninth grade is the only class, grade level that has had this new model in practice for 2 years, right? 10th grade last year was the first year.
So this is,
And you will get a copy of this, so you can look at it.
so this is the ninth graders in 2022 and the ninth graders in 23.
Correct, it's not the same cohort, it's the 2 different cohorts. We asked, these were from surveys that we gave, we've been giving surveys twice a year to students since we started this. We asked the question about how well students feel their teachers are communicating the expectations to them around the requirements. And again, this gets back to particularly the proficiency work. And so this is the reporting out from students. Again, this is just ninth graders. We did ask the same question of our 10th graders, but we have nothing to compare it to.
What was the 10th graders?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I could get that information for you if you'd like. So again, you're probably gonna leave with some questions too, and please feel free to email me questions, because I'd be happy to share more information with you. We also are tracking students earning honors distinction. So the process, and I'm just gonna kind of overview it again so you remember the difference. Previously, students were enrolled in an honors class that they took, or a college prep course, or a standard course. And now students are enrolled in English 9, English 10, US History 1, and they're given the opportunity to engage in work that is intended to stretch their use of skills or knowledge in the content area that they're exploring. So this is the percentage of students who are earning honors distinction in 1 or more courses. This doesn't get reported out until the end of the year. So on a report card for students, it will say, like, at the end of first quarter, which we're approaching now, if a student has been doing work that has them on track towards earning honors distinction, they get a comment on the report card that says on track for honors. And that happens every quarter, and then at the end, the teachers report out if they've earned honors distinction. So this is year-end data that we're looking at. And the last column is the goal that we can set for ourselves with the grant.
So is this good news? I'm not sure how to interpret the bar charts.
I think it's an open question, right? Like, is this where we want to be? Well, we had been hoping for our 9th graders, we were gonna have 60% of our students earning honors distinction. In 9th grade, at the end of last year, we had 57. So we were pretty on track for where we wanted to be. In 9th grade, for our, last year, we had 39%. We had set a goal for ourselves of 40%. 10th grade was significantly lower. 10th grade, it was the first year of implementation.
Yeah.
Right.
Where did that number come from, 60%? Like,
We picked it,
Yeah,
right? So in writing the grant and saying what we hoped we could get to, that was an initial goal that we picked. And you want to pick something that's aspirational, but you don't want to pick something that's too easy, nor do you want to pick something that's impossible, because everybody'd be dejected.
yeah.
I should have pointed out the 2 different colors are the all students versus the high needs category students.
It's funny, the whole conversation is I never even thought to ask that question, or I don't think it ever really came up. Like, what is good?
Right.
Yeah.
So grade 9 and 23, you're there.
Have you dug into the 10th grade at all to figure out why? Like,
So we had internal data more specifically broken down by content area, by teacher, teacher, like we're pulling all sorts of data and asking many, many questions, sharing the data with teachers, doing the analysis with them, because really, a lot of it is actually about them asking themselves questions to inform their own practice, right? Because that's where the shifts will take place. It's great if I notice something, but if it doesn't change practice on the ground, that's not.
So grade 9, 2022 is the same kids as grade 10, 2023.
That is correct.
So they
Yeah.
actually went,
Yeah.
fewer of them are.
Fewer of them were earning honors distinction.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is correct.
And,
And so
and in
there's
the,
good questions around that, right?
and in the next slide, I think you'll see some comparisons to the previous system, right?
No.
Do we
I
think,
think
do we think
that
it should be the same each year though? Should it be, maybe it should be going down, right? I mean, you started with the same platform and people choose their paths and.
I agree with you.
I would just wanna know why.
You know, I'm
I mean,
thinking about it
kids are
myself.
feeling like there's nothing in it for them, they're not seeing any reason, this honors distinction is just a random thing that gets put, like,
It could be a lot of reasons, I know.
Yes,
right? If the
The ones-
assignments are
yeah.
just more work and not actually meaningful
Right.
work, it's like there are so many, and I don't know anything, but it's just.
right.
But what I wonder
There's
is, in a
some
perfect
content
world,
and it varies, right?
if you were doing this perfectly, which I know there isn't, if you're doing it perfectly, and you took a 10-year sample, which we don't have, I wonder if in that situation, you wouldn't see decline, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Is decline in that figure a natural part of the process or not? I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah, or do you get so good at meeting young people where they are that it's a increase, right?
Yeah, that's another, it could be that, so.
Could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
We're not gonna figure it out. There will be a future slide that's like the million unanswered questions, so we're glad you're joining us in the million unanswered questions.
All right, so
This is
here.
what I was talking
Oh, yeah,
about.
okay, it is. So this one actually shows, again, we were thinking about like, okay, what about our previous system compared to what we're doing now? And of course, what was challenging around that is we were also in the middle of a pandemic. And so we're trying to figure out like, what kind of data could we potentially pull from our previous system that might be worth comparing to? And so we pulled students who were enrolled in honors courses from 2018 to 2021, obviously eliminating the pandemic year, the 1 year that was the hybrid crazy year. And we took a 3-year average of numbers of students who didn't have any honors courses, had 1 to 2 honors courses, had 3 to 4, and then we just combined them. And this slide, I'll give you some time to look at it, raises a whole lot of questions for me.
But the one thing that's important to know is we weren't able, Christy, to make a distinction from people who were scheduled for honors classes versus who actually earned honors in those classes.
That's correct. So that's why I said they were enrolled in. I did not say how successful they were.
So they, I mean, they got the weighted average of being in the honors class, but they may have got the C, so you're saying.
Correct, or maybe didn't pass, right?
Or
So
didn't
that's-
pass, and so we may have to go back and do this again and pull out the people who were scheduled for honors classes who
Got an E or above or something.
Right, and we
Yeah.
want, that was one of the questions that was
Right.
raised for us that we want to dig into further, is how are students actually doing in terms of their grades in the previous system compared to the current system? And we have not done that analysis, but that was a question that came up for us in connection to this set of data. All right. This one's a little harder to see. The different colors are different subject areas, and this is just comparing the median grades in courses, and it's core courses. I don't, actually, it's not on the slide, and I apologize, I don't know if this is just 9th grade or if this is 9th and 10th. I think it might be just 9th grade, pre-COVID, 2018-19, to our current grades, leaving off the year 2020-21.
But-
That year's missing.
Yeah, but so an interesting thing in this is you see this trend, so science is the lowest grade. But from an assessment standpoint, the kids are hitting it out of the park in science.
Right, and we get to the
Right.
MCAS data, which is the next two slides.
So that could be the tension around rigor. So it's more rigorous, they're better prepared, and the grading's slightly harder.
All right. MCAS information again, this slide, and I apologize, there is an error, so I'm gonna tell you what it is. The top half of it is our 10th grade ELA. It's us compared to the state. And I wanted to have us compared to the state. We had done some trends over time, but especially through the pandemic, what made students fall into some of these categories was changing. And so trends over time don't work as well as comparison to the state. This bottom half is 10th grade math, even though it then says 10th grade ELA. It's just 10th grade math. The top half is 10th grade ELA, bottom half is 10th grade math. And again, we have all students compared to the state, and then we have our high needs population compared to the state. The first column is students who are meeting and exceeding our MCAS. And this was this year's, which I did not share in the MCAS presentation. And then the next slide is the science data, which you have already seen, but it's presented the same way as the previous slide. And then there is a link here, so we'll share this slideshow with you, and the link actually will bring you to a spreadsheet that actually has all of the schools in Berkshire County broken down this way with us and the state, so that you can look at those comparisons for ELA, math, and MCAS. And I think it's actually for 2 years, so. All right. So a little bit of the work that was going on last year, because I do think it's important for you to have context as we also talk about what we are doing moving forward. You've heard some of this, so I'm not going to talk long on this slide. But last year we were in the middle of the process in our development of Portrait of a Graduate, which was delayed. We had started those conversations before the pandemic, and we got back to those conversations last year and had focus groups going on. That is important because that should be our North Star, where our proficiencies, our competencies are leading us to. We did finalize our content area proficiencies, so those are now, we have a finalized document, teachers are using them, they're aligning their assessments to them, we're creating grading criteria aligned to them. We have our, they're called professional learning groups, we call them ILGs. The teams last year specifically were engaged in rounds on feedback, how teachers give feedback to students, and how teachers structure the learning environment in class to provide opportunities for students to give feedback to one another. It's an really important part of the process in a proficiency-based system. They shared strategies with one another, and then they tried some of the strategies in their classrooms, and they actually engaged in peer observations at the end of the year. So in our teacher teams, they used some of their time to go into each other's classrooms, collect what is called low inference data. And low inference data means just write down what you see. Don't make any judgment about it. And then come back to your group, and they had conversation about what they were seeing in each other's classrooms. We do have our Rethinking Grading grant, which is another key component of this work. Elsa Hernandez, who you've heard from twice, she's our Rethinking Grading fellow. She worked last year and put together a team of teachers who worked with her, and they were the team that worked on refining our grading procedures that we used for this year, and they also drafted our new Habits of Work and Learning rubric that we are using across the school. Habits of Work and Learning is intended to separate out student behavior feedback from feedback on their learning. But that makes those two things separate. So again, in a traditional grading system, often teachers, including myself when I was in the classroom, will include things like class participation or take points off when things are late. Or students might get either penalties or extra credit for other things, and often those are all related to behavior. And behavior feedback under this system is given separately. And so this is the first year we have a school-wide habits of work rubric that we are using. We're working on using it. So different teachers are implementing it differently, and it's part of what we're discussing in our professional learning groups, like alignment and practices and how we can use our habits of work rubric with fidelity. And then
It's
last
still
year.
incorporated into the grading, though, or not incorporated?
Right now, it's incorporated into the grading. The procedures outlined that teachers could have it worth anywhere from 10 to 20% of their grade for the year.
The reason why this is important is the previous approaches, probably all the approaches we had when we were in school, rewarded people disproportionately for being compliant and good at pretending to be in school or something, or like, just like. Right,
Yeah.
And this focuses more of an emphasis on an actual learning and growth. It doesn't mean you can run around like a crazy person, right? You still have to take.
Well,
care
it's
of
an
things.
interesting question that I was been wondering about that, this whole debate, like where that. I mean, you could get somebody who's like one of these like math geniuses who are born just knowing all this stuff. And knows it on day one and deserves an A on their knowledge, but could be a monster otherwise, right?
Well, and the point is.
Yes.
I just didn't go for that. You bit that worm. I think the other component of this is in terms of like 21st century skills for students to be successful adults in the world, these habits of work skills are critically important,
I agree.
right?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Being
They
on
don't-
time, doing work on time. What does it take to collaborate with other people? And what does that mean? And even if you don't necessarily, this isn't your friend, but you need to work with them.
Yeah.
These are skills that students need explicit feedback on and need to know that they're things that they have to work on. There are also things teachers need to work on teaching, and I think, again, historically, teachers in younger grades have done more work explicitly teaching those skills. And at the secondary level, often we assume they should come to us with these skills. And if they do, they're the ones who wind up in our honors courses. And if they don't, well, they don't have these skills yet. And really, we should still be continuing to teach these students these skills, right? So it's an important frame for the work.
Some of them, particularly boys, take longer to get it.
Right.
Some of us are still working on it.
But really need to be taught it,
Right.
And legitimately, like after elementary school, too, like the adolescent brain goes through a near complete rewiring. And those skills need to be continually taught.
Right.
Yeah.
And so those are things, my final little one on this slide is the SEL leads. Last year was the first time we had SEL leads, and they were, again, it was all 3 schools, but at the high school in particular, those folks are the ones who are really leading with their peers conversations about how to teach some of these habits of work skills more explicitly and how to better support students, not in their content area, academics, but in these other ways that we need to help them grow and develop, so.
Is the goal to eventually have those kind of separate grades in a way, or?
Yeah, if we go to a full proficiency-based reporting system, and I say if, because we have not made the determination of what the change will look like, and I agree with Rich, it has to be a whole community conversation, but those would report out separately, so you would have the skills, and students would get whether they're beginning, developing, meeting, or exceeding in those skills, right? All right, so tied to all of this is how students feel in terms of their ability to grow and take on new challenges. And for us, we're the students are a little above average, but we're in the like somewhat true to mostly true is where, and this is from a survey that the Bar Foundation asks us to give our students each year. It's part of the grant. And so, I would like to see these numbers higher. I would like to see more students believing that they can be confident and take on new challenges, right? And if students don't have that confidence, then they're not likely to engage in whatever's being provided to them for the extended challenges in classes, things like that, right? So. We've also done lots of surveys. So we have some things that teachers have shared with us. There are more teachers starting to integrate more project-based learning experiences in to their content and in instructional practice. Teachers are having more of that communication that I mentioned, one-on-one with students around assessing strengths and weaknesses. Having time to discuss and plan with colleagues is always something teachers want more of. And focusing on the transferable skills we just talked about. Challenges is finding time. We are facing challenges with grading, right? We're moving into one system, but we're still in the traditional system, and that is a challenge for everyone. The PD time. I was at a conference last year for the Rethinking Grading Grant, and Redesign is an organization that works with us, and they said, schools are not designed for adults to learn. They're designed for students to learn. But when implementing change like this, the adults actually need to do a lot of learning and changing. And so time is always a struggle around that, and how we use the time and structure it so that adults have the space to do the work that they need to do. We still face lack of consistency among teachers. It's a challenge. It was a challenge under the old system. I think people just accepted it was part of the challenge in our old system, and things are new. And so it's different and uncomfortable in this system. And we do still have parents who are questioning, like, why are we doing this? Why are we making these changes? Why couldn't we have kept it the way that it was? So that's difficult on teachers who are on the front line. Some of the strategies that teachers have shared that they're finding are working well in their classes. I won't read them all. I read them all on the last slide. Having more advanced questions. That's one of the things that we've talked a lot about. Not just asking students to do more, but really asking them to push themselves and challenge themselves. And as we bring new teachers on, right, we have to have those conversations with new teachers, right? Because they might not have worked under a system like this before.
Is summative assessment different from summary assessment?
Yeah, a summative assessment is intended to be like the final capstone that would incorporate multiple skills and content for students to demonstrate. And formative assessment is the word we use for like the more daily check-in, the assessments that teachers should be giving like regular feedback on that build to the end, like end of unit assessment is the summative assessment. So it might be a final writing project, or it might be a final lab. It could be a traditional test, but if it's a traditional test, we're trying to push how questions are structured so that they're more open-ended for students and not as much rote, just parroting back on tests, so.
I'm sorry.
This was a question we asked parents. How are parents feeling about their children's classes and if they're at the right level? So we have, you know, under 50% saying it's just the right level, and then the next highest category is the too easy, right? And that's the work we're trying to do of how are we ensuring that students need the extra challenge, and you even mentioned it, right? And how are we ensuring that students who need the extra challenge are getting that? And that's something we're continuing to work on.
Does it say something that such small percentages in too difficult? I mean, what does that imply?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because we have large percentages in the too easy, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a population that we clearly need to be providing
You would
more
want it to
rigor
be-
and challenge.
You would want those numbers to be higher.
We do.
I
mean, we really like more at the just right level, because just
Of course.
right, if you're a parent and you want, you know,
Yeah.
you see your student is capable of whatever they're capable of, there should be receiving a challenge at that level, right? And that would still be just right for them. So.
I will say this is totally anecdotal, but my,
15, 20 years of having kids in the district and over a decade on the school committee, the too easy complaint predated this whole change. That's been around for a while.
The kid comes home and has no homework, day after day.
And I will say, when I was a student there and Bill was a teacher there was the too difficult would have been through the roof. And that's what we're playing, right?
It was, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
In our department.
Yeah, your department had either a very good or very bad reputation over everyone that.
So it's interesting, because I really
Give
appreciate
A's,
you
yeah.
raising that, and it's one of the things I actually had written down on my notes, right? It's that idea of like this inconsistency, and I think that actually comes up on the next slide. Like inconsistency that continues to feel inconsistent across classes, and I believe that that's true, and we're actually working hard to improve that. And yet what I know is that it was true before.
Same thing for
Again,
grading.
people
Yeah.
were just more comfortable with our old system, and we probably weren't even asking the question, right? I don't know that we were asking parents to tell us, if that was something that we needed to be working on then. But I remember years back, conversations we would have. Of course, I was a math teacher, and we would be in the math and science department, and we would talk about how so many of our top students graduating were students who had strength in math and science. And it was because, at least we thought, math and science, we tended to give higher grades. So we would have students who we would give 99s or 98s or 100s for a quarter or for the year. And social studies,
Bill's making you jump for
no
a
way
or
was
something.
that. It wasn't happening. So students who
That's
were
right.
strong in the humanities actually were disadvantaged in terms of, you know, their overall rank in class or anything like that. And so I do think that inconsistencies were just different. And I think being aware of them is critically important in terms in our ability to try to address them and move towards more consistency, which is what we should be doing.
In defending inconsistency, in a sense, that is throughout the educational system. My
Yes.
granddaughter Endicott has one professor that's really hard and another professor who, okay, you know, show up, we're gonna do some slides, you're gonna take a quiz, you got an A, okay? That's throughout the entire system.
Yeah, right.
Well, I did have a student, I had a student teacher who gave out 99s and 100s. And I got pillared by my department. And I didn't get pillared by the teachers. I got pillared by kids in the other classes, in Spencer's and Bianco's and Flynn's class, who were getting Bs. And were working twice as hard and so I had to take the student teacher and say, no, wait a minute here. Let's review the grading system.
Do you have any either formal or anecdotal data about this year's 11th grade class? And what kind of classes they've chosen to take, or what the transition to AP and
So
honors
I'm
classes?
really, really glad you're asking that question, because I'm gonna go to my next slide, which is not the data,
Okay,
but it's my questions.
Okay, cool.
Because I'm asking those same
Yeah.
questions. I'm asking the questions are there changes in enrollment patterns for AP courses and advanced courses as these kids are getting into their junior year? It's a really important question, right? And what's even more important is gonna be asking them, asking the question around like, how do they do in those courses, as we go through this year? I'm looking at things like beyond the completion of honors, what about that grading component, pre-COVID, post where we are now? We want to look at post-secondary data. We had been looking at post-secondary data before the pandemic, and that was actually what was driving some of these early conversations towards change. And so we're gonna really have to be examining the post-secondary data as this first cohort and the first few cohorts graduate from Monument, and where do they go? How successful are they? How persistent are they? Do they stay in school? Do they actually complete a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree? Those are important questions. How are students performing in our AP and advanced courses?
Can I ask, can I add an addendum to that question?
Yes, please. I'm not gonna write it down now.
How do
so you
students
can
feel
send it.
prepared to take AP and advanced
Yes.
courses in comparison to where they came from in 9th and 10th grade? Because I've discussed that with a couple of kids.
Excellent question.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, so-
another thing to think about is, the previous system, once you were in an honors track, you largely stayed in an honors track, right? And occasionally people sort of were late discovered and they got pulled in, or somebody really struggled and they stepped out. There wasn't a lot of like fluidity there. I think what'll be really interesting is over time, were there gatekeeping things happening previously that aren't happening now? And in particular, are there students with disabilities, and are there a wider range of students, economically more diverse, BIPOC students who are enrolling in classes who previously might not have enrolled in classes?
That you raised, I don't want to go back to the slide I asked a question about early on with the graphs and the decline. Did that, so your 4 core subjects.
And world language got added last year.
Okay, so it's 5 subjects. So freshman year you do you did honors in all 5?
Freshman year, it was just, the first year we did it was just the 4 core, and then last year we did 5 in both 9 and 10.
Whether it be 4 or 5, I'm just saying. So let's just, for my model, say 4. So hypothetically, freshman year, you could have made honors in all 4 of your core classes. Then sophomore year, you realize you're more of a math and science person, and you hit honors in math and science, but you're kind of like, I'm just gonna do my humanities and get through them. Would that have been what is reflected in the graph going down?
It's possible, and that goes back to Corey's question, why?
Yeah,
We don't have.
like I definitely see people start to.
Right. But
People
it's
can
something
graduate
to
with honors in
dig
some disciplines and not others, because of who they are.
That makes sense. The other is you're looking at the right-hand side, left-hand side, the higher side. There's always been talk about grade inflation.
Yeah.
And turnover in teachers. So you're looking at what we're doing now.
Yeah.
But you don't know what we did before.
Right, right. So these are just some examples of questions. My point was that we're looking at all of this, we're sharing it with you, we're looking at it internally, we're asking ourselves questions, we're sitting in these teacher teams, sharing data and asking ourselves questions, because that's how we're gonna identify where we need to keep working, digging in to improve, and what are the things that are working that we should keep doing, right? So the final slide, this was my slide that I shared with my faculty on the first day. These are the things that we are digging into this year, similar to what we did last year with a few adjustments. So we're still continuing our proficiency work, but we are committed this year to allowing our teachers more time within their departments to do some of this work. We've been working a lot over the past few years in these interdisciplinary teams and in full faculty meetings, because we've been doing a lot of full faculty PD on this. And then we're also, like Miles alluded to, really focused on observation and the supervision, but really more observation. So when trying to move change, there's 3 ways in which we can work in the building with staff. We can work in full faculty, which was what we did a lot of in the beginning, because there's a lot of new information that we have to deliver. Then we can work in teams, which at the high school are the departments and the professional learning teams. And those teams meet twice a week for 45 minutes. And then we can do one-on-one conversations and coaching, right? So this year we're digging in, or we're trying to dig in, myself and 2 assistant principals. We even have our instructional coach for the district to get into teachers' classrooms and to be literally sitting down with them after and asking them questions aligned to the work we're doing to give them feedback and provoke thinking. So that's an important component, I think, for this year. Our professional learning teams are doing the same kind of work Miles is doing and Katie is doing around data. The teams are sharing assessments with one another. At our PD day yesterday, our teachers all shared assessments. They were in partners. They shared an assessment that they had given in the first quarter. The other teacher was asked to reflect on what would a student need to know and be able to do in order to be successful on the assessment. Then the teacher shared the performance indicators that they had chosen to align to that, and they had a conversation about how closely the performance indicators aligned to the assessment. And then they actually took it a step further and shared student work with one another. It was a short conversation, but those are the kinds of conversations that teachers are going to have more with each other this year, because that's what has to happen to align grading expectations to the performance indicators. Habits of work I've already talked about, and SEL and restorative justice, these two are already kind of alluded to, so.
One more question.
Sure.
I know, again, I just get limited, but then I have to shut up. While the teachers are doing this deep dive and all of the rework on assessments to kind of address the proficiency base, are they also keeping in mind kind of AI-proof assessments?
Well, yes, and I think proficiency-based assessment lends
It
itself
does,
more
I agree,
to
yeah.
AI-proof
Yeah.
assessments, right? Yes, it's definitely a topic of conversation at the high school, and it's definitely something we've encountered with our students, the use of AI, so, yeah. I do just want to share two more things Colin's doing, since the question was asked. He is helping us finalize our portrait of a graduate this year, which is a big deal. And he's also working with the admin team on supporting us in our work with observation and feedback for teachers. And I think that's a critical component of the work we're doing.
Thank you to all three.
Yeah.
Really good.
Thank you for listening. I'm sorry, mine was a little longer.
No, no, it's super thorough, and it's one of the longest meetings ever, but I think it's time well spent.
Not also the longest meeting ever.
No, no.
At least that 4-hour meeting.
Right,
You know,
it's
school
recent
meetings.
school committee meeting. So I'll be really quick on other things. Not a whole lot going on with the MSBA. We have a building committee meeting coming up on November 1st at 5 p.m. And that's intentionally a little while after the votes on Saturday.
Not on our calendar, so I don't know if that's been sent out.
Okay, it will be, yeah. Or maybe Jason knew about it and
Yeah,
nobody else knows about
Yeah,
it.
so make sure it gets sent out.
Yeah. And so that's it for me.
Okay, so let's move ahead. Policy subcommittee has not met, buildings and grounds has not met, superintendent's evaluation,
That's not bad.
technology has not met. Finance subcommittee has not met. since the
No,
last time.
it did, it met last time.
Yeah, but you reported on it.
No, I didn't report on it, so I wasn't here. Did somebody report on it for me?
I think yes,
Okay.
yes, we did. Personnel report?
Fairly straightforward. I'm really psyched that the new people are coming in, and Miles mentioned Stephen Costello, who's starting as a math teacher, and we have a new ESL teacher coming in, or she's also started, right? Kelly?
Yeah, Monday.
Monday. Great.
Thank you. Any new or old business? Any public comment? Stay on. Also, what we did. With nothing else, unanimous consent, we are adjourned.
Thank you.